Hello? Hello, 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 hello. Can anyone hear me? Oh, there we go. Okay, now it's going through. Okay, awesome. Welcome, everybody. Surprise stream. This is very spur of the moment. I'm not even sure why I decided to do this. Um, is my mic testing, testing, one, two, three? How's the volume? I was kind of mumbling before. Now I'm actually talking at like full volume. So let me know if the volume now is good or is not. We good? Just checking again. Do another volume check. How's my mic voice? How's that sounded? All right, I'm getting a good. So yeah, I did a post. No, this is the same mic as always. Maybe it's your ears, bro. Everyone else seems fine. uh, so basically, what happened here is I made this post asking about what it is that people liked about the Global Defense Initiative, and then I left to go do important IRL stuff, and I come back and there's like 44 comments. I had read maybe 9 of these prior, and now we're here. So uh, I would like to read them together with you guys. Also, this is just an experiment because I know I have people who are all over the world at different time zones, and I wanted to see if I do this at near midnight Pacific time, who ends up showing up on the stream, and does that actually work for anyone? So yeah, nothing important, just me shooting the breeze. So let's take a look. All right, we got our first comment from Sputton Stuff, and he says the ultimate good guy faction. For every punch they take, they return 10 times the amount and then some. All three games depict it as a force to be reckoned with. Even in its quote unquote lax state in CNC3, they still manage to come out looking like the proper main eventer. We're going to have to act if we want to live in a different world. Very, very good. Couldn't have put it better myself, and rightly so, near the top of the comments. Arctarian says their ability to not give up and bounce back from whatever comes their way, and a kind of rare powerhouse good guy faction. Very good point. I love that. And that's a good point about CNC3 as well, going back to this one. As much as I sometimes seem like I'm ragging on CNC3, I do genuinely love that game. And I do like the idea of me taking a more nuanced approach and seeing a more flawed GDI and see them still kind of come out on top. I like that a lot. Arbiter says, my introduction was Tiberium Wars, so watching these guys get surprise attacked by Nod, their whole command structure blown up, and then taking the fight to Nod worldwide, and then accidentally blowing up a continent, then beaten into the dirt by the Skrin, sucker punched again by Nod, and still winning was and still is the coolest thing ever. Mammoth Mark III's voice lines perfectly encapsulate GDI for me. I agree. I really love how GDI just ends up being at its weakest possibly in CNC3, at least in terms of like the most susceptible to corruption, the most having stripped back their military in order to fight Tiberium, and yet they still find a way to defend the Earth and protect humanity, and I love that. Sirius Hauser says they never give up, even when their backs are to the wall or the odds are stacked against him, or even if the world's gone to hell in a handbasket. They believe in themselves and do their damnedest to protect as many people as they can and preserve some sense of normal life where they're able. Plus, I love the Mammoth Tanks and always will. I'm gonna come across like a really racist comment, and then I'm gonna have to like end the entire stream. I just know it, or something like that. Their will and dedication. No matter how much has happened over their long history, the absolute ravaged state of the world in Tiberian Sun, or the loss of leadership and incompetence and corruption by, I assume he means, gosh, I'm blanking on the name, Redmond Boyle, in Tib Wars, they stayed true to their mission and pulled through every time. Agreed. What real life UN professes to be, GDI sincerely tries to be. You know what? Let's give a heart for making fun of the UN. uh, as someone who often enjoys villain factions more, I think that they're a great good faction, especially in Tiberian Dawn and Tiberian Sun. They're the quintessential peacekeepers and protectors, doing everything they can, and I respect that personally. Glad to hear from you, Tyrannicus. He was an important writer and voice actor on the documentary project. Nanomans is because they're basically the Allies but more industrial, or the UNSC but more on the home front than deep space. Agreed. Because they're trying to make things better, and in the world of CNC, that is a rarity. I agree, Litton. I agree. What Ozzy says, "Are you drunk? Remind me again why you're streaming late your time." I don't know. You don't have to be mean about it. I'm just trying something new. Also, if I was drunk, I feel like you would know. Uh, by the way, that says the Super Challenge Bros. I'm assuming that's Ozzy, but that could very easily just be Rogue messing with me. Maleficus says how they refuse to be corrupted. In the decades of their existence, only Boyle considered to weaponize Tiberium. Um, to have that much power and to use it to help people. The commitment to their mission without fail. They're the good guys in the classic term. They do the right thing because it is the right thing. I agree. In fact, I have something to say on that. GDI is to good military organizations as Superman is to superheroes. Because they really are. Not that GDI is flawless, but they do their best to help people. And in a world of, you know, kind of compromised organizations, even in fiction, it is nice to see an organization that genuinely wants to save humanity. Okay. What's going on? All right. BG Vasil says, mechs, dropships, space lasers. That about sums it up for me. Can't go wrong with that. Space Ghost says, I like their tenacity. In the official games, it is best showcased in Tib Wars. They get nuked and betrayed by Nod, punched in the face by the Skrin, jump back defeating them both. However, I prefer the mod Twisted Direction for Tiberian Sun. It is an alternate timeline where GDI lost the war to Nod in the first war, and they still decide to fight against orders of the Nod-controlled UN. It's really bad. Too bad the mod doesn't get talked about enough. I know, I'm still beating Twisted Insurrection. Maybe after I beat it, I'll talk about it. It definitely is one of the more interesting alternate universes because most people don't even think much about Tiberian Dawn and how important it is that GDI wins that war. Liam Bercrombie says the modularity of their weapons platforms and admit in Tiberian Sun as a side challenge. I like the idea of non-time based building missions, the idea of extracting all the Tiberium. Cool weapons. Frank G says the ion cannon. Can't disagree with that. Chloe Starlight says it can be summed up to Steel Talon's rules, while a team of Titan Mark II is crushing a Nod base. Love that. Yuri Initiate says, as many others have stated, I admire their tenacity and fervor. They never give up or even consider stooping down to Nod's level. But I also enjoy their gameplay very much. It's not often that the good guy faction uses the strategy of overwhelming force. Most of the time, that's relegated to the bad guys. And of course, their tech looks and plays awesome, especially during the Tib Sun era. I really love using the carryall to show Nod that GDI can be fast too when they need to be. I miss that. I miss the carryalls. I know we get the was it the Ox carryalls or the Ox transports in Tib Wars, but it's not as cool as the carryalls. It's also interesting that I'm getting tenacity. That's the word that's coming up over and over again. Just the fact that GDI doesn't give up. That's not something I really expected to see over and over again. Why people like GDI so much. Trevin Lane. They are the most realistic good guy faction in RTS game. In all the others, there's a lot of obvious grayness to all their factions, but the GDI are definitely trying to save the world and are imperfect at doing it. I agree. I just like good guys being genuinely good. Not that I don't like, more nuanced and interesting, uh, characters and factions and stories as well. But it's unique for GDI, Not a lot of other stories do that. Jazz says, I love everything about it. They're my second favorite human faction of all time, only behind the Bungie era UNSC. I love that. I love that. Also, you guys can get a bit of an inside look at what I do a lot of times. A lot of times I will go and just spend some time going through the various different comments. At the very least, I like all the comments, and then I'll often reply to them as well. This is joy for me. I know it doesn't sound like that because I'm very tired right now, but it is. All right, I love the GDI. I think they look great and the lore is cool. I just wish they showed a lot more of the UN aspect, like in cutscenes, or give more accents to the units to show it's a worldwide thing, and the Orc and the Mana Tank are the best looking units in my opinion. I agree. I mentioned that earlier in the Tempest Rising stream. I really like the idea of when Command & Conquer will have the different accents to show that it's a multinational force. And I wish GTI did that more, and the Allies did that more. I think the only one that actually did it more was the Allies in Red Alert 3 and the Allies in the Yuri's Revenge when they added more voice lines. But that does make it really fun doing the documentary because I get people from all over the world and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, I have an accent. Will that be a problem? Like, not a problem at all. Both GDI and Nod recruited from all over the world. Jazz says, UNSC and GDI forever the GOATs. I agree, but for very different reasons. I like GDI because they're unequivocally good for the most part, even if they are flawed and have issues, especially during CNC3 era. I like that they ultimately are the good guys. The UNSC I like because they're almost like necessary evil. The UNSC was fighting a war against their own humans, the rebels, in a civil war. Halsey built the Spartans specifically to fight other humans. It was just lucky that the Covenant War happened and the Spartans became the symbol of humanity's freedom. And that doesn't make the Spartans any less heroes, but it does show that the UNSC is extremely shady, and a one-world government or a one-galaxy universe government would be absolutely horrifying, except in the face of Armageddon, where we actually need them. And that's, to me, what makes the UNSC so fascinating. And I kind of wish, after we had the Reclaimer saga and the Flood saga, I kind of wish that 343 had gone in the direction of like, okay, now that the threat is gone, is humanity still happy to be under the UNSC? Does Master Chief have to actually face like fighting rebels? Would he even want to do that? Maybe that would get too far away from what makes Halo Halo, but I was always kind of bummed that they didn't end up doing that. Cyborg Merc says, what is your favorite factions in the fictional universe, Snowman? That's a really good question. I'd have to think on that. As I just mentioned, GDI and UNSC are big ones. I think the Assassins in Assassin's Creed are a big one for me. I find that universe fascinating. I love the idea that the Assassins are not necessarily good guys. I still think they're better than the Templars on the whole, and if I had to choose one to succeed, I would pick the Assassins, but I like that their whole idea was for a long time peace, and then it became freedom. And I love the idea that they're, in their fight throughout history, that they're a really cool faction. And I don't even really agree with their philosophy necessarily. I mean, a freedom, yes, of nothing is true, everything is permitted. Aspects of that I agree with, but it's not a philosophy I want to live my life by, but that still just makes them a really fascinating faction to me. There are probably other factions that I'm not thinking of that I absolutely adore, but that's the ones that come to mind. Vidit of Light says, GDI does have nuance, even in Tibbs' Son, with their tension with the mutants or Boyle's presence. Despite this, they are still legitimately the good guys, so they have that base covered too. Yeah, exactly. That's what I like about GDI. Like, ever since Tiberian Dawn, they've had nuance. We going back to like the Mao Civil War in the Africa campaign in Nod, where GDI is helping to support one side so that they can get more influence in the area. Like GDI has always been a little shady. I mean, they came from Black Ops 9. Like they were not always, on the up and up, but the fact that they're ultimately good, I think makes them a really well-written faction. The fact that you can have nuance, you can have them not be perfect but still ultimately good. I honestly think that takes better writing than a lot of times making just a straight up gray faction. It depends, but that's my take. Alex Bissad says, that's not a problem, that's a bonus. What is? I'm not sure what you're referring to. All right, back to the comments. I think I read this one already. Hey, it's Michael. Michael Grodel says, GDI feels like the ultimate boss of the post-World War II world order. That's what's interesting, at least for me. Definitely, GDI, especially in Tiberian Dawn, is the pinnacle of 1990s optimism, where it really felt like, hey, now that the Cold War's over, the World War's over, maybe we have nothing but a bright future of peace ahead of us. And it's like, oops, nope, just Tiberium, or in our world, so many things. Michael Grodel also is a voice in our documentary. He does a lot of voices. He's very good. Ant40 says, for me, GDI is the inverse of the typical good guy faction. They aren't the underdog of the story like the UNSC or the Rebel Alliance. Instead, it's the opposite. GDI is at the top of the food chain. Refreshing, really, to see when the good guys have the necessary resources to face the challenges. I agree. I think it's really cool. I think that's also why Nod is so loved, despite the fact that they're the bad guys, because they're scrappy underdogs, and it's kind of fun to see that inverse happen. Volkswagen says, if you could make the next CNC, and what would you make, and what route would you go? I think I have better ideas for like a whole new RTS that I would make in a whole brand new universe. As far as like a new CNC, the safest bet would be to make a Generals 2, because there's not a lot of story in the first Generals. It's a very wide demographic, it has a lot of mass appeal. Even people who aren't fans of Command & Conquer would like it. So I would just make a Generals 2 in a world where, the US is now isolationist and China is kind of taking over, and the GLA. I would focus the GLA, I think, a bit more into being like in Africa, and because that would also parallel a lot with what China's doing in Africa as well, and then you could have the US be more underdogs. So that's kind of where I would go with the new CNC. After that, I would probably make a new Red Alert. More time to travel shenanigans so we could get us back to more like what Red Alert 2 was. I would kind of want to get away from the Red Alert 3 timeline, although I think I would still try to find a way to have the Empire of the Rising Sun still be a faction, because I did think that was a really cool idea to add Japan into the mix. But Tiberium would be the last one I would touch, because I would know I would have to get that right. Vidit of Light says, I find the Assassin's philosophy more or less accurate for their own context world, but I find that world itself and the lords found it on to be wrong and reject their philosophy. Yeah, no, it's interesting. If GDI is the faction I love because it kind of agrees a lot with my real world morality, the Assassins are interesting to me because they don't line up with my real world morality, but I still find them fascinating and I still love them as a faction. And I think Assassin's Creed 3 has the most interesting things to say about the Assassin versus Templar ideology, as well as like how you would live in that world and how you would live those morals. But that's for another time. I could talk for hours on Assassin's Creed 3. Cyborg Merc says, I became a Nod fan because they used tanks and didn't like mechs when I was younger. Do you like mechs now? Honestly, I feel like Nod's best tanks were the light tanks from Tiberian Dawn. Tick tanks were cool. It definitely reminds me of Aliens. And then the Scorpion tank in 3 was just It's kind of cool, but it's, I don't know. Oh, well, I appreciate that, Cyborg Merc. It's good to know that all of us get to grow and mature and change for the better. I've just always been a mech guy for as long as I can remember. Although the one thing I hate is that the Armored Core or the Gundam style mechs, and here's the reason why. Because so many of those mechs fly. What is the point of having articulated legs if you're not going to use them? Like, go back to the Earth Siege style mechs. I want to see them moving around slowly, tactically, like tanks on a battlefield, shooting each other like a game of Battleship. Like, I don't want to see flying. If I wanted to see flying things, I'd go play Ace Combat. Don't give me mechs that have legs just to make them fly around super fast. That's just my pet peeve. All right, Squishy Music, good to have you back. I think the Skrin arc was the snowball maker for me. They're so human there and live up to the best values we idolize of what military should be. Protecting civilians and sacrificing themselves for the greater good. It was awe-inspiring to see them defeat both Nod and the Skrin back-to-back together while caught by several dirty moves. Then each other game endeared me more, as they showed their resilience and cunning in Tiberian Dawn and the sheer hopelessness of Tiberian Sun that they pushed through. Also, perhaps most importantly, they are professional and don't come across as toxic human supremacists that a lot of fighting aliens and terrorist factions can be. I agree. Absolutely. See, this is why I like making posts like this, because you guys honestly end up collectively writing and expressing what makes Command and Conquer so special better than I ever could. Like, this to me is the ultimate reward for having this channel, is getting to read comments like this. So well done, Squishy Music. Fit of Light says, you know about Earth Siege and presumably Star Siege? Goat! I do, actually. It's a little old for me. My older brother played Earth Siege and Earth Siege 2. We never played Star Siege. I need to go back and play a lot of those old games. It's just hard to find a way to play those on modern systems. But they might be available through GOG, goodoldgames.com. I should try to see if I can find that. But I adore Earth Siege, and those were some of the earliest games I can remember ever seeing, let alone playing. But that was definitely my older brother's generation, not me. But I still love it. Frostburn says, good morning, everyone. Hey, Snow. Hey, Frostburn. I don't know where you are, but it's like midnight for me now. I just decided on a whim to just read through the comments of this post I made about, hey, everybody, why do you like GDI? You know, and I also wanted to see who was awake and in what time zone this is actually a good time. Mr. Dandy, one of my members. Good morning. How's everybody holding up? I'm doing all right. Oh, Frostburn's from Poland. It's 9:05. Oh, well, hats off. You missed my comment where I was talking about how much I love Poland. Remember, guys, on the HSG Snowman channel, we love Poland. Cyborg Merc says, I like anime and Western mechs. Yeah, if you have any good mecha animes to recommend to me, let me know. Again, I kind of avoid a lot of like the more well-known mecha animes just because they're not as strategic as I would like. One of my favorite mecha animes is one called Aldnoah Zero, which doesn't do the best with the character stuff, but I really like the strategies and how they use the mechs with a lot of intelligence. So if there's anything like that out there, let me know. Alex Pisadze says, I like Nod. My favorite villain factions are crystal worshipping cults like the Monolith from Stalker. I need to play Stalker. I was so excited for Stalker 2 coming out, and I was going to go back and play the old Stalkers because they're all kind of like available on like Xbox Game Pass, and I never got around to doing it. I'm really bummed because I love the Metro series, and I really wanted to play Stalker because I felt like that was like in a similar vein. So I need to play that. Litton says, summarize, they're not making things worse. And if you wanted to summarize Nod, it's like, hey, you know what's worse than one giant paint bubble? 2 giant paint bubbles. Fitted of Light says, if you enjoy giant walking tank Western style mechs, be sure to check out the MechWarrior Battletech series. Yeah, I think I played a little bit of MechWarrior. It was like a MechWarrior game. It was like MechWarrior 5 or something that was on Xbox Game Pass a while back. It was very complicated. yeah, if you can think of a good game in that series that's like not too intimidating for newcomers, let me know. Frostburn says, in this house we love GDI, freedom, and Poland. Absolutely. That's one of the things I really like about the Command and Conquer community. There's so many people from like Eastern Europe, and you are all based as heck. To not sound too cringe, but you're all really cool. I love Eastern Europe. You guys are fantastic. Um, Litton says, not an anime, but Titanfall 2 is really. I love Titanfall 2. I need to cover that on my second channel because it wouldn't take that long. I adore Titanfall 2. As soon as I finish covering it on my second channel, me and Ozzy are always talking about doing a video essay on that game. I would. Frick, that's what I need to do next. I need to make a video essay on Titanfall 2. Thank you, Litton. You've lit a fire under me. I'm going to do that next. Litton also says, I have MechWarrior 2 and Tibbs Son on CD-ROM still. Sits on my bookshelf. Cool, cool, cool. You guys are all very cultured. Very proud of you guys. Horizon says, Juggernaut. What more is there to say? Major Slavic says, Steel Talon mechs, especially the Mammoth Mark II. Agreed. Edmund Williams says, in CNC 95, the Airstrikes, Commando Orcas, and of course, the Ion Cannon. Tiberium Hound says, that they cannot kill Kane. Kane lives. Okay, seriously, I love GDI's Mammoth tanks. If you get enough together, the game can't stop you. Absolutely. That's one of the things I love the most about Command & Conquer 3 is just building a bunch of Mammoth tanks, giving them railguns, and then just going ham on an enemy base. Let's see. Vidit of Light says, I recommend MechWarrior 5, honestly. I mentioned it on the Tempest Rising stream. A lot of customizations there and are relatively simple to grasp. Well, as soon as I get more money in my life, I think I'll pick up MechWarrior 5 and maybe I'll cover it on a live stream on the second channel. That could be fun. I really need to do Ace Combat as well. I started Ace Combat 7 and then the trailer for Ace Combat 8 came out. I'm really excited about that, but I need to finish 7. I also have a pilot friend of mine that really, really wants to do a video essay of Ace Combat 7 since he's already finished it, and I promised him that I would. Mr. Dandy says, the coolest, not the best mech game for me is Steel Battalion for the OG Xbox, mostly because of the controller. Oh my gosh, I think I've heard of that. That had that crazy custom controller. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Litton says, would you describe CNC's world and setup around the plot to be very similar to Ace Combat's Strange Real World? I don't know enough about Ace Combat's world to be able to say specifically. I feel like Strange Real is a little bit closer to Real World and is a little more melodramatic. Also, I feel like Strange Real is a bit more, has themes of anti-war, whereas CNC is more... I mean, not that CNC can't be anti-war as well, but I feel like it's more about doing what it takes to save the world, I guess. Alex Pisadze says, haven't seen it myself, but I watched a video about Patlabor. It has mechs armed with gigantic revolvers. That sounds crazy. I should check that out. Cyborg Merc says, I'm from Hungary. Ah, also very cool. Like I said, Eastern Europe. Love Eastern Europe. So I guess midnight my time is a great time if I want to catch all the people in Eastern Europe, which is interesting. Maybe Privateer Man will show up. I know he's from former Yugoslavia. Litton says, I'm based in New Zealand. It's about 7 p.m. here. Huh. Yeah, you know, maybe I should try some streams around midnight my time to catch all you guys for the evening crowd in New Zealand and the morning crowd in Eastern Europe. That could be fun. New Zealand's really cool too. I really want to go to New Zealand. Me and Mrs. Snowman have said that like at some point we should go to New Zealand just to visit all the locations from like, because you know Lord of the Rings was filmed there, the Chronicles of Narnia was filmed there. Like, it's just a fantasy world come to life. I know there's a lot more to New Zealand, but I would really love to visit there at some point. And there's other CNC people in New Zealand as well, so that would be cool. Mr. Dandy says, my favorite character from AC7 is Dog.png. Ace Combat 7. Sorry, I thought saying Assassin's Creed. All right. Back to the comments of the post. Where did I leave off? Sorry, my brain's shutting down. It's been a long day. I don't know why I'm doing this late at night. What I like about GDI is their railgun, Space Force, and standardization of their military hardware. In my opinion, makes them the faction that will restore the Earth to its prime condition as long as they didn't have any major internal problem or coup. I agree. If we ever get a real CNC4, one thing I did like about the fake CNC4 was the GDI Civil War. I thought that was an interesting idea, since Nod is usually the one that's always fighting itself. I would love to see if, like, hey, we're finally getting rid of Tiberium. We're going to give the world back to its nations. If there's, like, a split between, like, those in GDI that want to give the world back to humanity and those that don't want to give up their power, I think that might be interesting. Or maybe that's a stupid idea. I don't know. Thank you, Spike Master. Tim Brooks says, I'm a sucker for the good guys. Nod is an amazing faction, but it's definitely a cult and it shows. Yeah, exactly. Nod is cool, but no one actually would ever want to be a part of it. Pete of Darkness. At first, it was Titans and Wolverines. Tip Sun was my first game, and I was 10 when it came out. But 26 years later, I work in the environmental protection. Oh, and they're basically my dudes with walkers. It's so cool. GDI is the foremost, fighting Tiberium and not second. If it was purely a military organization, that would dissolve after the First Tiberian War, but killing Kane felt more like a side quest when space rocks literally poisoned the planet, and arguably their most accomplished feats included reclaiming blue zones and developing sonic technologies. They also helped mutants and yellow zone civilians, and if we say Tim War's GDI campaign is canon, then they also defeated the alien invasion. It's as if NATO, the UN, WHO, and all the countries' EPA equivalents decided to grow a spine and band together against Bin Laden. Bald Bin Laden. That's really, really cool. I like his take on that. It's sort of like why, if you guys remember Rescue Heroes from like the early 2000s, was like if search and rescue and emergency services had the budget of a full-on military. Yeah, this is like if NATO, the UN, and all of that came together. I think that's what makes GDI so cool, is they're not just there to save the world by killing the bad guys. They're literally here to save the planet, as literally as it can be. It's hard to get cooler than that. Litton says, did you ever see the No String CNC4 video? I went through tons of combos on their Discord about hypothetical units and ideas for armies. I've watched every single No Strings production video at some point in my life because he was like my number one CNC YouTuber for a while. I think now it's Jethiled. So I know I've watched it at some point, but now I don't remember a lot of that video. I probably have to go back and watch it again. That's pretty cool that you got to discuss stuff like that. Mr. Dandy says, it was an image of a golden retriever, so it checks out. Golden retrievers are the best breed of dog. Don't at me. No replies. That's just a fact. That was established by God himself. I don't make the rules. Vitative Light says, I am also a sucker for the good guys, so GDI is it for me. Then the whole wide variety of things the others have already mentioned. Exactly. Whew. Man. Alright. Owen Lars. Their compact aesthetics and industrial power, especially in Tiberian Dawn and Tiberian Sun. Jay-Z. The Jay-Z says, hello, Snowman. Loving your content. Looking forward to the CNC Red Alert content. Thank you. Appreciate it. Good to have you here. Where are you tuning in to us from? We're all kind of... I'm trying to figure out what time zone midnight for me actually works for everyone else. So far, I'm getting New Zealand in the evening and Eastern Europe in the morning. So let's keep going. Pyro Shilov, he's a common commenter, says, they come across as the Machiavellian good guy throughout the series. They go above and beyond as humanity's last line of defense against Nod and Tiberium. No matter how dire the situation gets, and do so with some badass tech. Do they have their bureaucratic foul-ups from time to time, like the cut to their funding, Solomon and McNeil having different approaches to fighting, and Boyle's shenanigans? with the Liquid T bomb and Ion Cannon strike on Sarajevo? Oh, absolutely. But at the end of the day, they still show up to the fight and they don't hold back on the punches while being smacked around by Nod on several occasions. I do love Nod for its black hands, cybernetics, and funky tech, but GDI will always be first and foremost in my heart as the best RTS faction because of their defiance, will, and eagerness to get the job done by any ethical means. The UN was not meant to bring humanity to heaven, but to keep it from hell. What is that quote? Who said that? I'm looking that up later. But I really like this. Again, defiance. We're getting tenacity as something that people like. But look at this. The will and eagerness to get the job done by any ethical means. I cannot think of a phrase that sums up GDI better than that. Like, you start to hear done by any, and you think, oh, by any means necessary, but then they throw in ethical. Like, that's GDI. GDI will literally do whatever it takes to save humanity, but they will not cross that line. And I just, that was really, we're giving this guy a heart. This was, okay, hang on a second. There we go. All right, let's go back to the chat. Litton says the idea was just picking up where it left off. I'd love to do an interim campaign or a middle game to start build up for possible CNC 4 stuff, like a CNC 3.5 that relaunches the series. Yeah, maybe one of these days I'll actually get started on that standalone mod idea I have. Just make games, you know? Should just make games. Time zone, Pacific Standard Time. Oh, Jay-Z, you're the same time zone as me. What are you doing up so late? I'm the only one that's allowed to be an idiot in this time zone. Litton says, holy crap, that's a good quote. I know, right? It's so freaking good. This is precisely why I opened up the documentary to let anybody, like, write for it. Because I know you all cook. I know you all have, like, incredible writing, killer lines, and just an understanding for this franchise that no one at EA's got, except maybe Jim Turn. All right. Angel Gustavo says the Grenadier, Mammoth Tank Mark 1, Mark 2, and Gold Color. Ooh, we got a classic guy. Yellow gold color is very rare for factions in RTS games, especially reserved for allies, etc. Sometimes it is found in 4 faction games, like Supreme Commander, Forged Alliance, or Advance Wars, but red and freaking yellow isn't my first pick for a combo of 2 opposing factions. Fun fact, Tippering Sun uses faction colors to paint things like cars, so if your rifleman decides to commit some war crimes on civilians, they most likely were painted red. Interesting. I say GDI enjoyer. Respect. You guys getting a rare window to how I spend my evenings when I'm not talking with Mrs. Snowman, which I literally just was like an hour ago. Because we're madly in love. Oh, we're at the end already. How about that? Let's go back to the live chat. Frostburn, job done and ethical means in the same breath. What a times we live in. Exactly. That's what makes it so cool. You don't expect those two to go together, but with GDI, it does. So cool. Definitive Light says, U.S. Mountain Time. Oh my gosh, Definitive Light. But Night Shifter, have tonight off and was napping, but popped awake and saw this. Well, I'm glad to see you. You are a prolific writer and voice actor on the documentary, and you've been commenting for a long time on my videos, and I always enjoy reading the absolute paragraphs upon paragraphs you always write. Just solid guy, Definitive Light. Very, very solid. I'm glad to have you on the channel. Litton says, honestly, the biggest thing I think that makes the series work is the really difficult question. What is the central question about the series? My quotes were written based off of common writing around wars. Jay-Z says, I wish some canceled games had been reintroduced to the community, like the story, which is Yuri's being treated by Kane. Yeah, that would be interesting. I go back and forth on whether I would like them to reintegrate Red Alert 2 into the Tiberian timeline to make it all fit, or whether it's just like, nah, let them be two separate universes. But the idea of Yuri being trained by Kane was always a fascinating one. And Yuri might be the only other villain in the CNC universe to rival Kane in popularity. Litton says, basically, how can we articulate the message that has worked really well with the previous games? Or a similar one that is in step with the themes of the stories? Well, Litton, that would require whoever makes the next CNC to actually like truly understand the series, and that's a tall order. Emperor Tyrannicus, Central here, nothing to do while out of state. You're in the Central time zone, but that is not your native time zone. Interesting. Well, you're up even later than we are then. Good grief, Mr. Tyrannicus. By the way, Tyrannicus is also a voice actor and writer on the project. He does some fantastic writing. Specifically, he does like the journals, like Kane's journals, Seth's journals. He also did one for General Ravachol, which you guys have yet to see. He does a lot of really good stuff from like first person. I specifically asked him to do more journals for other stuff because I liked his writing style in that regard, and a great voice actor as well. Frostburn says, all hail the great Yuri and the King. Oh, Baldies is okay. You misspelled that. Baldies, gotcha. Baldies are bastards. Cyborg Merc says EA will never make another CNC game. Honestly, if I had the choice between EA ever making another CAC game or letting the series die, I think I'd be happier with them letting the series die. Now, I don't mean not making remasters. I am begging them to make remasters. But as far as making a brand new CNC game, we might be better off with them just not touching it. I think the CNC community kind of benefits from sort of benign neglect, to quote Tom Cruise in The Last Samurai. Trinicus says, no, Central is my native, but out of state is not far. Also, thanks. That's very kind. Of course, you guys have all contributed a lot to this project. And Dika says, say what you will about GDI being goody two-shoes, but they do practice what they preach. Yes, they did make the ion cannon to bypass the nuke treaty. But the main reason for the treaty is due to the long-term harm fallout would cause. And here is not throwing nukes and chemical weapons willy-nilly. GDI can be underhanded when the situation calls for it, like when they prop up Hassan, and the fact that it nearly worked is impressive. Too bad Slavic has plot armor and is the protagonist, or else Kane would have had a harder time. And in the third Tib War, the worst of GDI is a bureaucrat that Kane picked to lead GDI from behind the scenes. Everyone else cares about civilians or their fellow troops. At the end game, Kane made it an order for not to prioritize protecting aliens over their own, showing that he only cares about Nod by how useful they are, while GDI would prioritize protecting civilians like in Sydney and Stuttgart. In Tib's Son, they also use non-lethal weapons on protesting civilians. We get to be an actual peacekeeper, and they're the only RTS faction that I know of not to bulldoze a protest. They actually care. I 100% agree, and I love that mission from Firestorm where you're just riot control. Yeah, you get to actually be peacekeepers, and I wish more RTS games would do that, where you just have an off-the-wall mission where you do something completely different than what you would expect to do in an RTS, something you only get to do in a campaign mission. To me, that's what makes an awesome RTS game. What's the reply? Ooh, we got two. Xylem says, I'm being underhanded. Let's not forget the OG. You've been hustled, Commander. When Shepard faked the funding from the UN to get the drop on Nod, and you were introduced to the Orca. Love that. GDI still has nukes, though. They keep them moving and maintained just in case they need them. Nod almost stole one warhead, only for the screen to show up. I think they did steal that warhead. Let's go back to the chat. Bit of Light says, new Tiberium CNC to decanonize EI's abomination. Make game about GDI having advanced from the Skrin tech to Fetty Earth with a full-on Skrin invasion. while Nod tries to work for its own ends. Yeah, if you guys want a sequel to Kane's Wrath, not necessarily as a game, but for more lore, I might have a project in the works for that. Currently brainstorming stuff uh, with Zypher and Luke Danger. Yeah, might bring Vidit in on that if he wants to work on that. Vidit of Light says, also, thank you for your kind words too. Absolutely. Absolutely. I wanted to bring Tyrannicus in for a different project I was thinking of. What was it? Oh, that's right. It was I discorded you about that earlier, Tyrannicus, and I saw your reply. Thank you for the extra information on Brother Marcion. I liked your take. I'll ask you more questions later. Frostburn says, Vidit of Light, the good people deserve the praise, and the good people know to deliver it. Remember that. Yeah, that's a good point. Remember to just tell the people you care about that you care about them, and don't wait. Just say the obvious things. That was something I say a lot to uh, Mrs. Snowman. It's like just say the obvious things. It may seem obvious, but like I love hearing it, and I try to say the obvious things to the people I love. Litton says, I don't think CNC3 or Kane's Wrath needs to be retconned or decanonized. You could work around them in interesting ways, time travel, or just setting a different time frame series like after Kane's Wrath. Yeah, no, I don't have a problem with CNC3 or Kane's Wrath. I mean, I have minor nitpicks, but overall, I really like what they did with the story. I like the things that they did. CNC3 and Kane's Wrath are just fine by me. CNC4 is the thing that needs to be decanonized. Oh, hey, Erglusman. What time is it for you? I believe you're in Israel, if I remember correctly. Geolag says, hey, wanted to know why my comments and replies aren't showing up for my main account. I don't remember getting banned. I don't know what you're talking about. Probably because I don't know what your main account is called. Um, Litton says, it'd be interesting to hear what the idea would be, though. What idea? I'm sorry, my brain's not working. What idea? I nothing more specific. Frostburn says, Linton, but still, I wished EA delivered GDI themed expansion that was rumored about. There was a GDI themed expansion. Was there? Were they considering doing something similar to Kane's Wrath but for GDI? Because that would be freaking awesome. No? Please tell me more if you have more information about that. Litton says that would have definitely been a good addition. I feel like it balanced things out. Frostburn says Mammoth Mark II stands for balance. Protronicus says to expand on the point about GDI being the more actually appealing because Nod is a straight up cult. Hard agree. Love my baddies, but only in a fictional sense. In truth, I'd be GDI. I agree. Like we were talking about with the Assassins and Templars before, like I would join the Assassins in real life because I feel like they're better than the Templars, but they would not be my they'd be the lesser of two evils in my mind, whereas GDI is probably one of the few fictional factions I would gladly join. Or Gloomsman says 10:30. Is that AM or PM? I assume AM, since everyone in Eastern Europe it's about 9:30. That's cool. Yeah, yeah. Let me guys know if you would like that. Um, I would love to um, try doing live streams at times that are better for other time zones. So if you guys like this time, I can't guarantee I would do it often, but if I ever feel the need to like play something at midnight, let me know. Let's see. Emperor Tyrannicus, through and through. Heck, all my main characters in my fanfics, and now my first original property I plan to write would be hard GDI characters. Oh, you're doing an original property? Well, if you're doing that, feel free to send me some of that stuff if you feel like it. I would love to read it. You do good work. You do good work. Okay. Back to the comments on the post. Wallace Jenkins says, "Why I like GI? Easy. It's the lore." Anti-Dragon says, if the very world you're living in is a worse enemy than a whole superpower's worth of sadistic fanatics." Sorry, I wasn't even reading that. I was literally like reading it mechanically, but my brain was not actually listening. I'm gonna have to end the stream soon and go to bed. Let me just finish out the rest of these comments. Okay. If the very world you're living in is a worse enemy than a whole superpower's worth of sadistic fanatics, when an unkillable prophet with half the world wrapped around his finger has declared jihad against you, when your whole species is facing extinction at the hands of invading aliens, Skynet-esque cyborgs, and Fremen-like mutants all at once, then it becomes all the more important to stare at all that madness and inevitably in the face and say no. There was something worth preserving on this lonely ball of rock before Tiberium came, and we're going to show them all exactly what it is. Chills, guys. Chills. What should I write to this guy? What should I say? I don't know what to say. I want to say something really kind and awesome because he wrote something incredible. Just I don't know. Just there we go. Yeah, let's just do that. And now it's in bold. There we go. That was awesome. Or Glusman says, "Hey Snowman, did you see the trailer?" Yeah, you asked about that earlier in the stream. I have not seen the trailer. I'll check it out later. I always wanted to play Plague Inc. I should try that. But yeah, it's nice to know people still remember Tiberium. Jay-Z says, if EA will decide to work with former Westwood employees to revive the franchise, aside from bug fixes, please focus on the canceled games from there. Let the story branch out from the canceled titles. I think the only canceled game that I can think of that I'm like really bummed didn't make it out the gate was the Tiberium FPS. That looks so sick. Litton says, Firestorm and the canceled Tiberium FPS are definitely also things to examine. Yeah, I was just talking about that. Emperor Tyrannicus says, yep, nothing written yet, but a lot has been thought out and just need to do a test chapter. Also, welcome. Always happy to help and be a part of the projects. Absolutely. Or Guzman says, Frost, I didn't think, but it'd be awesome if they did it. Okay. Raise says, a flawed organization doing its best. Absolutely. Irish Flyboy. Oh, this is Irish Flyboy. You guys know who this is? Do you know who this legend is? He goes by Bob. And he was the first writer to send in stuff for the project. And he sent in just entries, like a dozen entries in one document, and then a week later sent in another document with another dozen entries. I don't think I've even been able to use like half of what he sent in because a lot of it takes place either like before the war even happens or after. But man, is he good. He wrote some amazing stuff. He's one of the writers I went back to and said, hey, can you write some more stuff specifically about like the Nod campaign, some of the stuff in Hajor. He's a legend. And he's also the one who voiced Art Bell in those Art Bell radio segments, which he also wrote. And I've recently gotten him to voice some other stuff. So he's a legend. He's great. You are really gonna love one of the things that me and him cooked up. She's gonna show up in the final documentary episode of the 3 mini episodes. We cooked up something special for you guys. You're all gonna love it. Bubba's Big Blast. I remember him. He's one of the few guys who stuck with me for the entirety of last year's Game Awards stream, which was like 4 hours long or something like that. He says they're good guys, but also a little bit off. Like building orbital weapons in secret, quietly co-opting the Brotherhood before Tiberian Sun, more or less sane in CNC3. We don't really care about the White House, but the civvies will cry until we take it back. So it's like they see everyone outside of GDI as annoyance at best, which is unusual for the de facto protagonists. It makes them feel a bit more real than the more heroic counterparts. So yes, that's an interesting take, because I feel like most of us here say like, hey, for like a one world government, they're actually pretty nice. And he's like, for a protagonist, they're actually a little sketchy. I'm like, it's honestly crazy for a government that rules the entire world that they're not sketchier. Sky Vipers, he's cool. I don't remember what he's done, but I remember having positive feelings in my head. Their willingness to experiment into armored divisions consisting of giant walking mechs. Yeah, we'll give that one there. Okay, I think that's everything. Yeah. So, oh wait, there might be some more stuff here. Yeah, just 18 minutes. Okay, well, let's refresh the page. We're not quite done yet. Let's see what we got here. My brain is not braining. Larga Luzman is talking about more fan art. Yeah, there's some cool fan art out there. Okay, so I just got to look for the thing that I haven't thumbsed up. So it'll probably be towards the bottom. Oh, what? Here we go. Jay-Z says, for me, they have access on both Allied and Soviet arsenal off the RA1 storyline. I do love that. Very cool. Dakota says, I'll be honest with you, I grew up with Command & Conquer franchise since I was very little. I'll be honest with you, I probably go more with the technology. I mean, the ideology, it sounds great for the GDI, but at the end of the day, I don't know if I wish that the aliens that came into effect games later was great, but I don't think. Sure. I'll give that a thumbs up. Styles RJ. Honestly, I like GDI because they're not Nod. I think people only like Nod because of the memes, but to actually live as one of them might not be their ideal way. Especially since Nod is organized under Kane. The moment he stops leading, everything breaks down. If GDI loses their leader, they appoint new ones and they still remain as they always were. I'd say they're the good guys, but now that I'm older, they're the better guys. Also, when I was a kid, I like the color yellow because it's what GDI used. So there's that too. I like that. I like that Styles RJ. Irish Flag Boy says, their pragmatism. I never get the sense that GDI is or ever was a good guy faction, but a faction that knew it had to get crap done in order to solve the problems it faced. Absolutely. Alright, last one. Julius Vandolf says, Nod has charismatic Kane, but if you scratch deeper, you find fanatical religious organization focused on the cult of a leader. Yeah, I know if you ask about GDI, but I give context. From the other side, GDI is a symbol of the West, created by the UN to protect the world from Nod and Tiberium catastrophe in the first game, and the second and the third, and also to fight with Tiberium infestation. Still, I think that in facade, I don't know what that means, in facade of pro-Western organization, they have just an oligarchy of rich people like MAGA. Oh, or is that where we're going? Is that whatever, dude. Sir, this is a Wendy's. We smoke Tiberium here, sir. Cyborg says you should go to sleep. I should, and I will. Thank you guys all for watching, for letting me do my thing. For everybody on the other side of the world, when they wake up, they're going to find a weird VOD of this and be like, what? How did I miss this? He made no announcements. I'm like, that's right. And I would do it again. Thank you for being here, Commanders. I'll see you all next time. Hopefully I got something to show you later, but you know, life has been weird. Hope you're all doing great. Thank you for being here. I'm gonna go to bed. I'm gonna go to sleepy. I got my GDI flag up. I recently changed my living conditions, and I had to bring all my new stuff into this place, and I got my GDI flag up on the wall again, and now it feels like home again. So have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye. Where's the off button? What does this button do? No, that's the wrong button.